So today in this video, you guys are going to be watching a short video on agent of erosion number 3. So far we've talked about our first agent of erosion, the most common form of erosion on the Earth's surface, which is running water. Then we spent time talking about the second agent of erosion, which is glaciers, rivers of ice, and now our next one is wind. Wind is our third agent of erosion that can pick up the smaller particles and move them to a new location. And that's what makes wind a little different from the other three, is that we are going to be picking up the sand, silt, and clay, the smaller fragments, and picking them up and moving them. And so areas that are going to be most susceptible to this type of erosion are going to be any region that has dry climate, where you have bare sand, silt, and clay exposed, no vegetation, your coastlines, your beaches, like we spoke the other day about wave erosion, the waves on the oceans moving material along the seashore, but we also would have the wind picking up those same sand, silt, and clays and moving them on the beaches as well. And when that happens, there are two different types of things that can happen by wind erosion. Number one, if you can see here, the first one is called deflation. Deflation is when, again, the smaller fragments are being picked up and carried away, such as in this picture here. What happens is the larger particles are left behind. And then the wind continues to pick up and move, and now you can see that less of the space is exposed, so less sand, silt, and clay getting picked up and moved, to the point where you eventually have this scenario, where all the sand and silt and clays have been removed and all you have is the larger materials left. And they call that desert pavement. The other type of erosion that could occur as wind is moving material is what we call sandblasting. But we can also think of it as abrasion. When those small fragments are being picked up, like for instance in this picture, they're picked up and they hit these rock surfaces, small fragments will start to chip away. And you can see what can happen to a landform over time as that continues to happen. And here, just an interesting type of structure or monument that could happen as wind, the smaller fragments picking up and sandblasting the bottom or base of this particular rock to form this unique shape that you have here. And because of this sandblasting, a lot of times people like to use or interchange the word weathering and erosion. And at this point in our unit, you should realize that weathering and erosion are two different words. We cannot interchange those words. Weathering is the breakdown, and again, abrasion is an example of that. But because those sand, silt, and clays are being moved or eroded, they in turn will help remove or weather this rock formation. So again, it's very hard to do, but you want to keep those two straight. They are not interchangeable, meaning I can't replace one and have the same meaning in the sentence. The biggest depositional, or the depositional feature of wind are sand dunes, and that is something that many of us have probably heard of. Here is a great photo of a sand dune, okay, where that large amounts of sand, silt, and clay have been deposited over time. And over here you can see what happens as the wind's moving. Wind is blowing in this direction, it's picking up material from here and picking up from here and depositing over here. So over here is where you get the deposition. And over here you can see picking up the sand grains, and over here the deposition. So what happens to sand dunes over time is they actually move. They can be in one area and over a long period of time through this combination of picking up material, erosion, and deposition, they will actually migrate. And so down here it says stop the video and answer the question. So here is a picture of a sand dune, and as the wind continues to blow in this direction, where will I now be drawing my sand dune? Where will the sand dune be after a long period of time with this wind continuing to blow? So stop the video now and try to draw the new dune after a long period of time. Alright, Well, let's see how you did. So here's the sand dune. As the wind continues to blow and erosion occurs over here and deposition over here, so I'm going to put D over here, E over here. Where will my new dune be? Well, it's going to make this surface move down. And I'm going to have a new steeper side over here. And so this will be my new dune, my new migrated dune to a new location. And again, this is a regions type of question where you may be asked to look at a sand dune and draw the new one after the wind continues to blow. Where will it move to? And what's interesting, in desert areas, you can have maybe a house or some sort of structure or monument that's there, but because the wind is blowing and moving these sand dunes around, this could eventually cover up your monument, your, any statues, whatever, from past civilizations. And then once the dune continues to move, it might uncover it. So that's one of those unique features out in the deserts. So last but not least, our last agent of erosion is gravity. We talk about it last because this is when weathering has taken place and weakened slopes on the Earth's surface and now start to overcome the force of gravity and move downwards, all due to the force of gravity pulling it down. And so you may have this kinds of mass movements is another word we can call them, mass movements or mass wasting. They can be very slow over time or they can be very rapid. Creep is an example of a very slow movement of the Earth's surface, the very tippy top here of this, that slowly over time moves downwards. And you can also have slump that happens. Here you can see just a small section of there that breaks off and just slowly moves down. Mud flow, rock slides, landslides, however you want to say, any of those, very rapid movement. Usually people do not know, there is no notice to these types of things, and usually mud flows is because of the land getting super saturated with rain and water so that it starts to flow like water. And landslides, maybe weathering over time has weakened this surface and now has broken off and slid down. So I have an example of this for you so you can kind of see how rapid these types of mass movements can be. So here we go. Check out this landslide here. And this site apparently was taken with a rock slide prior to, so that the camera crew continued to stay there and knew that this would continue and possibly more sections of that slope would have broken off. So this concludes our video on agents of erosion number 3 and number 4, wind and gravity. So our 4 agents of erosion: wind, water, glaciers, and gravity. Those are the 4 natural agents of erosion that are going to transport and move material from one location to another. So you're going to now go into the lab area and start to identify the unique features and depositional features of each of these agents.